Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're stepping into the shadowy halls of 19th century British royalty to uncover a lesser-known tale of betrayal, suffering, and ultimate revenge. This is the story of King William IV, a monarch who endured years of torment at the hands of Queen Victoria's mother, the Duchess of Kent. But before his death, William IV found a way to turn the tables and take the revenge he so desperately deserved. Buckle up, because this is a tale of power struggles, family feuds, and the sweet taste of royal retribution. The early days, William struggles as prince. To understand the depths of William IV's frustration and anger, we need to go back to his early life. William wasn't born with the expectation of becoming king. In fact, he was the third son of King George III and spent most of his life in the shadow of his elder brothers. His path to the throne was far from straightforward. Before becoming king, William had served in the Royal Navy, where he earned a reputation for being more down-to-earth than his royal counterparts. He was known as the Sailor King, a nickname that reflected both his naval career and his rough, unpretentious personality. But despite his charm, William found himself sidelined in royal affairs for much of his life. Overshadowed by the looming presence of his elder brothers, George IV and Frederick, Duke of York, but everything changed when tragedy struck the royal family. The deaths of his brothers thrust William into the position of heir presumptive. And while the crown was now within his grasp, William would soon find himself entangled in a bitter power struggle, one that would shape the final years of his life. The Duchess of Kent, the power behind the throne, now enters one of the most pivotal figures in our story, Queen Victoria's mother, the Duchess of Kent. When Victoria's father, Edward, Duke of Kent, died when she was just 8 months old, the Duchess found herself in an unusual position. She was now the mother of the future Queen of England, and she intended to wield that power with an iron fist. The Duchess was an ambitious woman, and she saw Victoria's ascension to the throne as an opportunity to secure her own influence in the kingdom. She established what became known as the Kensington system, a strict and highly controlling regimen designed to isolate and manipulate young Victoria. But her ambitions didn't stop with her daughter. The Duchess sought to expand her influence over the entire royal family, and in doing so, she set her sights on William IV, the future king. When William IV ascended to the throne in 1830, his relationship with the Duchess of Kent was already fraught with tension. The Duchess was determined to position herself as the power behind the throne, using her daughter's future reign as leverage. She made no secret of her disdain for William and attempted to position herself and Victoria as the true rulers-in-waiting. But William, fiercely independent and protective of the monarchy, wasn't going to let her take control without a fight. The years that followed were filled with bitter disputes between the king and the Duchess. William resented her growing influence over royal affairs, particularly her manipulation of his beloved niece, Victoria. He saw the Kensington system as cruel and unnatural, depriving Victoria of any semblance of a normal childhood. But the Duchess refused to back down, maintaining her stranglehold over Victoria and her own power. What made matters worse was that the Duchess refused to respect William as king. She openly defied his authority, attempting to bypass him in matters of state and acting as though the throne was already hers through her daughter. This constant undermining weighed heavily on William, and he saw her behavior as not only disrespectful but a direct threat to the stability of the monarchy. One of the most significant points of contention between William and the Duchess was her plan to act as regent for Victoria if William were to die before Victoria came of age. The thought of the Duchess ruling in his place was unbearable for William. He knew her ambitions and believed she would turn the monarchy into a puppet regime under her control. This fear of regency consumed William. As his health began to deteriorate in the 1830s, the pressure intensified. The Duchess, always calculating, continued her efforts to sideline the king, expecting him to die before Victoria's 18th birthday, which would leave her as regent. It was at this point that William IV, though weakened, resolved to take matters into his own hands. He was determined not to let the Duchess' plan succeed. He might have been tormented for years, but he was not about to allow her to take the throne, even indirectly, without a fight. In one of the most dramatic moments of his reign, William IV took his revenge in the final months of his life. His health was failing, but he clung to life with one goal in mind: to outlive Victoria's 18th birthday. If he could survive until she came of age, the Duchess would never have the chance to become regent, and her dreams of power would be shattered, and that's exactly what he did. On May 24, 1837, Princess Victoria turned 18. With that, William IV had won the battle. The Duchess of Kent would never rule as regent, and her control over her daughter was about to come to an end. William had endured years of torment at the hands of the Duchess, but in his final act, he denied her the power she craved. Just a few weeks later, on June 20, 1837, King William IV passed away. But he did so with the knowledge that he had succeeded in his final mission. Victoria would now ascend to the throne as a queen in her own right, free from her mother's shadow. And in that sense, William had achieved the ultimate revenge. With the death of King William IV, the Duchess of Kent's control over her daughter began to unravel. Queen Victoria, now a sovereign in her own right, wasted no time in distancing herself from her mother's tight grip. For years, the Duchess had dominated Victoria's upbringing, enforcing the harsh and isolating Kensington system. Victoria was denied the freedom and social interaction that other children enjoyed. She was kept away from much of the royal court and, in many ways, from reality itself, but now, with William's victory over the regency, Victoria was free to chart her own course. And she did just that. Victoria's first significant act of independence was to move out of Kensington Palace, leaving behind the oppressive environment her mother had created. She established herself at Buckingham Palace, a symbolic move that demonstrated her break from the Duchess. It was a bold statement of her independence, both as a woman and as a queen. Despite the Duchess' hopes that she would continue to wield influence over her daughter, Victoria had different plans. Once on the throne, Victoria made it clear that her mother would no longer hold the sway she once did. Victoria even went so far as to banish the Duchess' advisor and confidant, Sir John Conroy, from her court. Conroy had been a key player in the Kensington system, enforcing the Duchess' strict rules on Victoria. His removal was a significant victory for the new queen, and it sent a clear message: Victoria was in charge now. But while Victoria distanced herself from her mother politically, the emotional scars of her upbringing remained. Their relationship was never fully repaired, and Victoria harbored a deep resentment towards the Duchess for the way she had been treated as a child. In letters and diaries, Victoria would later write about the pain she endured under her mother's control, describing her as overbearing and manipulative. While William IV's reign may not have been as celebrated or as long as that of Queen Victoria, his influence on the monarchy was significant. By preventing the Duchess from becoming regent, William safeguarded the future of the British crown. He ensured that Victoria could step into her role as queen without the oppressive shadow of her mother hanging over her. This allowed Victoria to begin what would become one of the most iconic reigns in British history, what we now call the Victorian era. The story of William's revenge is not just about personal vindication. It's about ensuring the stability and integrity of the monarchy at a time when it was under threat from internal family dynamics. William's actions helped secure a future for the crown, one that would endure for over 6 decades under Victoria's rule. William IV is often overshadowed by his predecessors and successors, but his reign was far more important than many give him credit for. He was the king who stood his ground in the face of relentless pressure from the Duchess of Kent. He was the king who fought not only for his own authority but for the future of the monarchy itself. His final act of defiance, outliving Victoria's 18th birthday, may seem simple on the surface, but it carried monumental consequences. William IV was a man who understood the weight of responsibility that came with the crown. He may not have had the same grand vision as Victoria, but he knew that ensuring her freedom was crucial to the future of the kingdom. In this way, his revenge wasn't just personal, it was a victory for the institution of the monarchy. Victoria's reign, as we know, went on to become one of the most transformative in British history. She would rule for 63 years, overseeing a period of unprecedented industrial, cultural, and territorial expansion. But none of this would have been possible if her mother had held the reins of power during her early years as queen. By denying the Duchess of Kent the regency, William IV allowed Victoria to become the ruler she was meant to be. His victory ensured that Victoria could break free from the chains of her childhood and grow into the monarch who would lead Britain into its golden age. In the end, the story of King William IV and the Duchess of Kent serves as a reminder of the power of defiance in the face of oppression. William endured years of torment and disrespect, but he refused to let the Duchess succeed in her bid for power. His resilience, his refusal to yield, and his determination to protect the monarchy made all the difference in the end. So, the next time you think of Queen Victoria's reign, remember the man who helped make it possible. King William IV may not be as celebrated as his niece, but his quiet, determined fight for justice deserves its own place in the annals of history. thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating, untold story of King William IV and his well-deserved revenge. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos on the hidden stories of history's most intriguing figures.